So, at what point in history did we start to just accept that virtually everything that we want to do requires a license? So, I thought about this. This would be a good opportunity today to go over all the things that you need to have a license for or a permit. Now, before we get into this, a lot of people might say, "Why complain about it? We live in the best country in the world, right? America." And I believe that that is kind of a psyop. Basically, what they've done is they've created this paradigm of land of the free, home of the brave. And anyone who questions it, they simply say, well, why don't you just move out? Or you're lucky to live in America. It's the greatest country in the world, right? And so that basically silences anyone that challenges the paradigm, anyone that challenges their way of doing business, which was created for us by our masters, right? And I don't know when this hit me. It was probably about 10 years ago, I want to say, when I woke up one day and I realized, life's really hard. There are a lot of things that are controlled. In other words, these are things that normally you should be able to just do, but you're not allowed to do without oversight and control and input from the government, which requires time, it requires money, requires maintenance, upkeep, requires a lot of different things that you could never imagine. Now, we just had a situation here with Mark where when his dad gave him the property, basically the European Union requires that you update the sewage and bring it up to code. This is going to cost tens of thousands of euros to do this, and there might not even be a possible solution to update the sewage system to meet the standards of the European Union. So this now becomes Mark's problem. That's just one example of how government entities have so much control in your life. We can't just be left alone. We go through this life and we wonder why we're so stressed out or anxious or upset or feel like we're never getting ahead. It's because all of these little things represent a type of taxation and a type of invasive existence that is not natural to our human psyche. It's hard enough surviving. And when you got these taxes and licenses piled on top of it, then you run into problems. Let's look at some of these. Now, not all of you are involved in all of these activities, but I can guarantee you that all of you are involved at least in a couple of these things and have experienced licensing in America. Here's the first one, hunting. Thanks everyone for showing up this morning. I know it's early. Now, a lot of people say, hey, we need to regulate the killing of animals and stuff like that. And otherwise they're going to go extinct and things like that. Most of the hunting regulations have nothing to do with animals that are in danger of being extinct. And some people might argue that's because of the regulations. And I argue that there is something that should be in place called fair use. Just like we have fair use copyright, there should be fair use, personal use of God's resources. Basically, your God-given right to use land that's not used by someone else, to take an animal or food, wild growing food, as long as it's not on someone else's property. And you shouldn't have any regulation on that as long as it's for personal use, as long as you're not killing 10 deer and then selling them and making a profit, and then running a multi-million-dollar corporation where you kill thousands of deer and you're making deer jerky and selling them online or something. Then you should be regulated. But if you're a person that is simply seeking daily food or weekly food to feed your family, you shouldn't have anyone even questioning you about anything unless you're being wasteful and just wasting the resource. And I've seen that happen. Driving a car. Now, some licensing is legitimate, but driving a car, I believe that they should maybe have an age limit. But once you pass a certain age, why should you need a license to drive a car? Do you need a license to ride a bicycle? Now, some people will say, well, it's kind of ridiculous, Casey. Of course you need a license to drive a car. But who made that up? Did you always have to have a license to drive a car when cars were first invented? I don't think so. Driving a motorcycle, that goes pretty much hand in hand with driving a car. Fishing, we covered that. Fishing and hunting. Now, of course, there are people out there who poach, and poaching by definition is killing something to make a profit on it, right? So, of course, that probably should be regulated. But for someone that's going out for food, which is what the resource is for, they shouldn't be bothered. Selling real estate is the next one. Now, I think this is a scam to begin with. I don't think land should cost money if no one's using it. And, the government's already taken over land, which basically what they're really saying is because we're the government, we have the right to take and own land. Well, who gave them that right? God didn't give them that right. I didn't give them that right. So how is it that they're able to do this? And why can't we do it if they can do it? If they're not using the land, it's just sitting out there by itself and there's water on it and resources. Why can't we just go hang out on that land and build a cabin and fish in the creek? Land was never supposed to be for sale. They created that system. They created this paradigm that we've all just bought into. Buying a gun. Now this was the Second Amendment. Basically not infringe on the rights of your right to own a weapon. And so therefore, licensing, technically, people on the far right of this will tell you that you shouldn't even need a license to have a gun. But somewhere along the line, we got to the point where people just accepted that you need a license to buy a gun. Keep going. And what you're beginning to notice is that licensing is everywhere. Everywhere. All of us are touched by this. This represents thousands of dollars a year of your expenditures. And for some of us, tens of thousands of dollars a year, taxes and licensing and fees and all these things. Use a trademark. So this would be like copyright, of course, using a song. This affects us here on YouTube. It seems like every other video we upload, somebody owns something in the song or in the video. And it's going to get to the point where every single thing that's ever been said will be copyrighted and owned by someone else. And you won't even be able to speak because that phrase or that term has been copyrighted, right? Like what happened to Brian over on Impact Flicks. He put the McDonald's arches on his t-shirts, and McDonald's took the time out of their multi-billion, trillion-dollar corporation to pick on poor little Brian, who was selling a t-shirt. Practice law. Again, another straw man area that I don't even agree with. Lawyers make money off of people who are following laws that are illegitimate. They're the middleman of nothing. Sell alcohol. Now, you might think selling alcohol should require a license. But let me put it to you this way. Yes, I see some of you in the chat talking about needing a license to cut hair. to do hair. I have a friend that does home away, which is he basically rents his house out and then he takes off. He'll go camping or hang out with his folks, and he brings in an income of like $40,000 a year doing this. And they require him to have a license to rent his own house out to other people, kind of like a hotel, right? Now let's go back to this alcohol thing, because what about people who want to make moonshine, their own natural alcohol? Okay, a lot of people talk about cannabis, and I don't smoke cannabis, but I think it's wrong to put someone in jail who is growing a plant that they're using for their own personal use, and if they want to store up some for a year, and so on and so forth. There shouldn't be any control on that. They can do what they want to their bodies, and that's between them and God. And so what you have here is you have all this control. And so alcohol kind of falls under that, because again, that's made from a plant. You're basically taking something and distilling it from nature. And why is it that the government gets to force a license on you? In fact, you're not even allowed to make moonshine. It's illegal. So now you're starting to understand that we're not as free as we thought we were. It's a myth. Fly a plane. Okay. Again, I think this would fall under, if I was president, this would fall under an age limit. And I guess this might be a case where you'd need to have a license, because you need training to do this, very specific training. See, driving a car is kind of easy, okay? Once you get the hang of it, you need maybe 5 or 10 hours moving around in the vehicle before you get it. In the first 2 months, you might be accident prone, but at the end of the day, you'll either get the hang of it. You're either going to be a good driver for life, or you're going to be a terrible driver for life. And that's just how it works. It's part of the price you pay for getting into that vehicle. Immediately, your safety drops, and that's just life. Happens when you get in an airplane. Happens even when you get on a bike. You put yourself at risk. Licensing, I'm not sure how much that does to reduce that risk. It might help it, but again, you've got this third party imposing these things onto you and costing you money. You know, if they were serious about licensing, it wouldn't cost anything, okay? It's hard enough to pass the requirements to get some of these licenses, and on top of it, they add a fee on there, right? That's what makes you suspicious about licensing. Why is there a fee? Pet licenses, says Samantha. I saw hair licenses. Somebody asked about how things are in France. Pretty good, starting to cool down a bit. I got the fire going. Indoor cats, says Nash. So now we're starting to get what's going on here. Now, how we got to this point in history where we're having this discussion about licensing and realizing, wow, things aren't so free, are they? Is beyond me. And this is what you call the paradigm. People just accept things for how they are. Practice medicine. Well, you might think that that might be something that should require a license, but what about a homeopathic healer? What about how they did it for the first 5,500 years of history, where people used natural herbs and things? They didn't need a license. Okay? So why do we need a license now? It's because the license pushes the educational system. Because if they don't have the requirement of licenses, then what happens is nobody goes to medical school. Nobody pays the school and the institutions. You see how all this is propped up to bureaucracy. So everybody has their hands in the pot. Everybody has somebody that needs to get paid. Importing and exporting. Why should you need a license to import or export something? Because anytime money is involved, this is what these people want to get their hands on. It's basically a tax. Licensing is a tax. Need a manufacturing license. Many of you who have been on my channel for a long time know that I invented a wallet called the Nothing Wallet, and I sold it for a while. I kind of dovetailed it onto my YouTube channel, and some of you actually got a couple of those wallets. And I didn't actually have a license, but had I surpassed a certain amount of income from those wallets, I probably would have had to get a business license, right, to manufacture those wallets. Or if I was manufacturing them on a large scale, other than putting them together by hand, they probably would have required some kind of a license. Yeah, and the whole license to grow cannabis is a scam because they want to control it. They want to be able to do audits on you and see if you're paying your taxes. And this is where a lot of people who were pushing for the legalization of cannabis got burned, because they realized, oh man, what legalization means is control. So yeah, it's legal, but you got to hit all the marks. Build a house. Now, this goes back to the grid matrix. If you're building a house on their grid, on their matrix, there are certain requirements that they require for you. But if you're outside their grid matrix, why do they get to tell you how to build your house? Why do they have to have minimum requirements on the amount of space that you build, and codes and building codes and all this? If your house falls down, that's your fault. They don't care about your life. They pretend like they do, but they really don't, because if they did, they would make different decisions about other things. They really cared about protecting the public health, about how you build your house. Notice run a pub shows up on this list. Now, as I explained to you, basically what happens is anything that generates lots of income, they want to require taxes and licensing. Okay, this is how this works. A pub can be a very profitable business, especially some of the popular pubs. Okay, some of these pubs have been in business for centuries, actually, handed down from family to family. Okay, and these liquor licenses are not given out very freely. Sometimes you can go decades without a liquor license in a city even coming up to be bought. And these things have real value to them, okay? Especially in like a college town or something like that. And you see how the government gets right in the middle of all that? Anytime there's any amount of money to be made, you can bet there's licensing that's going to be required. And that's not free, you guys. What I've realized for a long time is, yeah, if you're willing to go and play in their system and their game, if you're willing to go to their schools and push yourself to the limits of your energy and your sanity and your patience, if you're willing to play on their field, yes, America can be a very free place if you're making a lot of money. But if you're talking about real freedom, America is not free. Breed dogs. Now, why would you need a license to breed dogs? That's kind of a ridiculous one. Marriage license. I don't know, is that biblical? Do you need a license to get married? I know Christ talked about having a license to get a divorce. I don't know. Operate a forklift. I think this falls under the automobile thing. Hey, if you can train someone to operate a forklift and you're confident with their abilities, why do they need a license? So, in practice medicine, that one got repeated, I guess. So that's what I wanted to cover with you guys today. And these are just the licenses. We're not even talking about permits, building permits, permits to make changes, alterations to your house. We haven't even got into that. So you can imagine the scale of the problem. And this is only a partial list, you guys. This goes much deeper, as many of you mentioned in the chat here. Your personal experiences with licensing for various reasons outside of this list. Let's pop in here in the chat, see what's going on with you guys. I uploaded some videos today. Hopefully you guys will take the time to check those out. James and the Giant Peach, unbelievable. It was already censored, the one where we basically uncovered all the pedophilia symbols. It's unbelievable, you guys. And also, I've got another one coming up on Blind 11 in the same film, James and the Giant Peach. It's released about 4 years before Blind 11. So check that one out. That'll upload in a couple days. But let's go over here and take a look at the chat. Hopefully the connection's good. Better internet now. We're all domestic terrorists, says Trevor. Yeah. If you don't want to play in their system, they automatically label you that, or a sovereign citizen or something, right? Medical cannabis is no longer any good, says EntertheStars Dragon. It has been GMO to death. Yeah, that's another byproduct of legalization. Basically, the big corporations came in because they were the ones with all the lawyers who were able to meet the guidelines for legalization, which means insurance. You got to carry insurance for this stuff. You have to submit to audits, which a lot of people that grow cannabis naturally, they don't want a government employee showing up to their property to audit them. And even if they didn't have anything to hide, these are private people. And all of this came along with legalization. And what many small growers realize is they don't even have the means to meet these regulations. And so they simply stopped growing. So sure enough, corporations came in. And if any of you who have any experience with this, who can vouch for what I'm saying, please chime in the chat. So you know this is just as me making stuff up. And they basically came in, corporations came in and bought up all the farms, resources. They hired people. You might have, if you were lucky, you got a job working at one of these corporate farmers, cannabis farmers, if you were a former grower. A lot of people didn't. And so what you had was, you had all these small farmers go out of business, and a lot of the cannabis was replaced with GMO. So that's what legalization does, you guys. That's why we got to be careful too. You know, I've talked a little bit about the internet and what should be done about it, and deregulation, but deregulation comes with intrusion of the federal government, because when you deregulate it from the private, the government comes in and regulates it. So I don't think that's the answer. I think it's more like they just need to all get out of the way and let the internet be the internet. But we all know that's not going to happen. All right. Yeah, I don't want to get into debate about cannabis. That's not really that's between a person and God. Whatever they believe is good for them and what they believe God thinks is good for them. I don't like to debate about that. I personally don't use cannabis, but I'm not going to preach on a pulpit and tell people not to use it or to use it, because I don't know everything, you guys. So, all right, let's look in the chat here. Yeah, buying a used car and paying taxes again on the purchase, says Fritz Cat. Yeah. Or buying a home over and over again that keeps increasing in value somehow, but it's the same home and the same land that it's been for the last 150 years. It's just unbelievable. So, well, I'm glad to be live with you guys again. I figure we should probably use it or lose it, right? I want to end up like Brian and have like a strike and not be able to go live when I want to. There was a good debate the other night, or last night, I guess it was. Brian from High Impact Vlogs got on with Mike the Cop, and they were debating the anarchy or voluntarism versus law enforcement, right? And Brian brought up some good points. I think what Brian really is talking about is natural law, even though he doesn't really use that word as much. But we have natural rights as human beings that are not being reflected in laws. That's the problem. Many of these laws are immoral because there's no victim. How can someone be given a ticket for crossing the street outside of a crosswalk? That makes absolutely no sense. And so it would be neat to see Brian kind of go toward a more biblical perspective. I'm not sure if he believes in God or not. I think he does. But that would answer a lot of these questions. Because God was he was the original giver of this planet to man, not to a corporation, not to a government, to the individual. He gave it to Adam. He didn't give Adam a certificate that said, as soon as you repopulate the earth, you're going to have to basically be in subjection to so-and-so. He didn't tell him that. He said, you are a man, and each individual man has rights given to them by God. And people that stand in the way of that will have to answer to God. And, people ask, well, is that biblical, Casey? Of course it's biblical. Jesus broke the law many times, told people not to pay taxes. He gleaned wheat in the field. He broke several quote-unquote spiritual laws they thought he was breaking, but he set them straight about stoning, about gleaning wheat, about paying, and then he broke government laws by telling people not to pay taxes. So we have a precedent for this. This isn't just us talking. This isn't just me talking, saying, oh, it sucks, I have to do this or that. No, this is biblical, you guys. Now, if someone is harming another person or stealing another person's property, two things that are in the Ten Commandments, wow, go figure. Stuff's reflected in the Ten Commandments. Isn't that a coinkydink, right? Then you intervene. Someone intervenes. And for that, you would need a police force if there's a victim. But you can't ticket someone, steal their property, and inflict punishment and pain on them and imprisonment when there's no victim to the crime. Okay? And that's where you get into the state basically wanting to be like God. They want to be God on earth. This is why they impose all these different fees, fines, and laws, right? That don't seem to make any sense. So, yes, put no other gods before me, says Darth meant. And when you follow laws, or they make laws that basically try to go around God, then we have a problem. So, all right, guys, want to be on here too long? Get some shout outs. Hungry Life, Anti-Zionist Dragon, Ali Ashby, Darth Mint, Fritz Cat Bar, Team Somebody, Grand Chahi. Our Lord's law is higher than ours. Exactly. We have a higher expectation that's outside our laws. Right. Illuminati destroyed Crump. Yes, government is a replacement God. I agree with that. Samantha. Remember, the Israelites demanded a king. King Saul. Exactly. LC. All right. Again, I'm going to let you guys go. Have a great day. Always remember, stay in the Word. Pray. Try to stay positive. You guys, I show you this stuff that I find. It's a protection. It's to help you so that you don't become part of this beast system. So you don't feel obligated to go see what you thought was a kid's film because now you know the truth. It's not a kid's film at all. It's pagan indoctrination. It's pedophilia. It's all these things that you didn't even realize you were going to go see. And whether you like it or not, it is having an effect on you and your loved ones. And we wonder why there's chaos in our lives. We wonder why there's pain and suffering. And we're doing it to ourselves a lot of the times because we're part of this beast system. We go to these movies, enjoy them, laugh about them, take our kids. Then we wonder why our kids turn out a certain way. Well, do you think it could have anything to do with everything we expose them to when their minds were being molded? And this is why we expose all this stuff. It's not to be negative. To me, this is all positive. When people tell me you're a fearmonger, I said, who's afraid? I don't see anybody afraid in these comments. Why are you scared? You're the scared one. If you're scared, maybe you shouldn't watch this. You're scared because you want to stay in the beast and you don't want to quit watching this stuff, or you don't want to know what it's really about because you want to continue to be part of it. So yeah, you should be scared because you haven't made a stand. But for all of us that have made a stand and decided we've turned our back, we shut our TVs off, we want to learn the truth about our reality so we can steer clear of danger, steer clear of brainwashing, we're actually not afraid. I'm not afraid to die. If I was afraid to die, I wouldn't be exposing all this stuff. You see how it works? That's why we show you guys this stuff. It's not for shock value. It's not because to scare you. If you're scared, you need to go do some prayer. This shouldn't scare you. What it should do is empower you to go, you know what? I'm off the hook. I don't have to be part of this anymore. When my kids beg me to go to a Disney movie and Disneyland and spend ungodly amounts of money for what? To get brainwashed? See how the truth can set you free? And it does set you free. You can live a simple life and not feel obligated to play on their field. Education is a scam. I can say that because I got an education. It's a scam. Home ownership is a scam. Well, to the point where you're getting, these large mortgages, thousands of dollars a month mortgage payment, spreading it out over 30 years. It's a scam. What's not a scam is if you save some money and buy property cash at a very low price, pay very low property taxes on it. You shouldn't have to pay for it, but if you did want to, that would be the way to do it. These kids are born in this world, and what are they given? They're given lemons. Life is a big fat lemon, right? And then they're told they have to succeed. Think of the pressure that puts kids under. Oh, in order to succeed, you got to go into debt. You got to pick up $100,000 worth of debt for an education. You got to pay it back over the course of 15, 20 years if you're lucky. And you're basically going to have to work 40 to 60 hours a week for the rest of your life in a job you probably don't like. Now you guys are understanding. This is all starting to settle in. You're starting to understand. It's all a scam. Where's God's gift that he gave you and you trying to develop that? That's nowhere in the equation of this matrix world. All they care about is that you're a worker and you have some kind of marketable skill, right? You got to go out there and make it happen. Something you might not necessarily like to do. Instead of using it for God. So, the truth does set you free because you can check out. Take your time card, you stick it in the time machine, and you clock out. You clock into eternity in God's plan, not this earthly experience. and their standards and their paradigms, which all lead to exhaustion, depression, anxiety. I know what's going on with my computer. You see the difference? But the people that aren't willing to check out, they're afraid. It's just terrifying because they're like, they don't believe in God. They're like, man, what do I do now? You mean to tell me everything that I thought was true is wrong? Well, it's always been that way. It's just the truth got hidden. And people misinterpreted the Bible for what it really is, what it's really telling you. The Bible tells you not to be part of this world and aspire to these things. It tells you that the least of you is the greatest and the greatest is the least. It tells you all this. But somehow the Judeo-Christian United States skipped all those verses, and it's push, 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 debt, debt, debt. Biggest house you can get, biggest car you can get, be the best, compete, compete, climb the ladder, right? That's the wrong way. That's the wrong path. The right path is being comfortable in who you are and letting God open up your personal gifts that He has for you. Each and every day I wake up, I try to use the gifts that God gave me to bless as many people as I can. I used to use my gift a different way, to influence doctors to poison people with pharmaceuticals. You see the difference? Took a huge pay cut, but I'm okay with that because God takes care of me. I'm free now. I'm not stuck in one place. And everybody can be free. Your gift might be different. Might not be like a YouTube channel. Could be something different. I know some of you do house sitting. So basically you sit for people's houses. I think they have a website online where some of you can do this. Maybe some of you that are on a fixed income, maybe you get Social Security disability, right? Why don't you go to, you can go to a website. If you need to get out of the house, you can travel all over the world. Go house sit for someone, walk their dog. If you like pets, I like pets, but I'm like not a pet person, let's put it this way. I love animals. I just don't have sometimes the ability to take care of animals. I think that's probably where I'm coming from. But some of you are really good at that. You're very good nurturers. Like if you had chickens like me in the yard, you'd be out there every day with them. My chickens probably are a little neglected. I mean, they get fed and they get watered, but I don't really give them a lot of emotional, you know. But maybe some people see it, they're farm animals, you're just supposed to feed them, and people have different viewpoints about all that, right? What I'm trying to tell you, though, is there's a way out of the way you're feeling. They have people around the world with properties that they don't live in, but they want someone in those properties to make sure people don't break in or squat. And you can go hang out, go down to Mexico, and it's free. You just need a plane ticket to get out there. So there's always a way out. It's just about opening your mind and using your gifts that God gave you, not the matrix gifts that you're told that you have to make money for the beast, right? Everything costs money. So that's what's going on with that. You guys, as we go further into the digital age, everything is going to get controlled more and more. There isn't going to be cash pretty soon. It's going to be, everything's going to be, every transaction is going to be accounted for. And that's when things are going to get really uncomfortable for a lot of people. I know for myself, things could get very uncomfortable. If they knew every single transaction I made and I couldn't use cash and they wanted to know, you have to be on a lease. You have to be on some kind of rental agreement. Pretty soon, that's what life's going to be. Everything's going to be accounted for. They're going to basically ask you, what are your living arrangements? And you're going to have to actually show proof of your living arrangement. Otherwise, you're an illegal. They're going to call you an illegal in your own country for not having a proper living arrangement. I mean, it's pretty much that way now in a lot of places like California. You have to be on a lease. There is no couch surfing anymore. Okay? And you pretty much have to have a cell phone. for any kind of like transactions. They verify everything now with the cell phone. So if you don't have a phone, you can't verify bank accounts and verify accounts and different things and move money around. See how everything's tightening? It wasn't like that before. Bank accounts were separate. They verified you by your driver's license or whatever. Well, now everything's verified through a text. You get a text verification. You have to send the code back. And this is only going to get worse as technology increases. And this isn't to bum anyone out. It's to tell you, hey, look, now's the time to make a stand. Stand for godly things. This is about God's rules. Man is not running things the way God does. If we all just stood up at the same time and said, no, that's not fair, they wouldn't be able to stop us. But people live in fear of what could happen to you. You see? And then you have a whole other set of people that sell out for money because they figure money is more important than morals. As long as they're getting a paycheck, they will do as they're told, even if it's against their morals. Why? Because they've got 20 years invested in the force. They don't want to lose their retirement. They don't want to make waves, right? Because money is so hard to come by. So hard to come by. So that's what's going on with that. Appreciate you guys all coming out. I think I probably was on the soapbox a bit too long today. But we'll catch up again soon, everybody. Much love. Take care and be safe.